thought I was being weird until he saw the look on my face. He was sitting right on top of a bomb.
Oh, shit! Sup? I'm recording. Yeah. Sup, though. Right, I haven't reacted to his videos in a while, too. I think Ripshy, that's what he said. Ripshy, something.
There used to be this kid at my school named Blake. Blake faced a lot of bullying from pretty much everybody, both behind his back and directly to his face.
Jesus Christ.
It's not like he didn't deserve it, though. He was prone to violence and often got in trouble for screaming in teachers' faces, because he was clearly indoctrinated into some crazy ideas that when it...
I was going to say that I'm right there with you. I've been bullied before, but I did not deserve it.
That's what they teach in school. I guess that means it's not totally his fault for how his parents raised him.
Yes, it is.
That never stopped anybody. Blake was just as physically repulsive as he was in conversation. He almost got kicked out of school for harassing a girl pretty badly after she rejected him for smelling like hot garbage. If only that had gone through, then things would have ended differently. It started one day when I was in history class with Blake. He stopped the class to dispute something the teacher said about the Civil War, and it ended up becoming a huge thing. The teacher was pretty cold with shutting Blake down with the facts, humiliating him pretty badly. This led to Blake screaming a bunch of stuff about how the country had been ruined. Then we all collectively laughed him off, and he stormed out of the school. That was a Friday. Over the course of the weekend, Blake posted a bunch of stuff on his Snapchat. Pictures of him holding pieces from his dad's gun collection, which he was known for bragging about extensively, and pictures of him posing in front of a Nazi flag, which was also his dad's, I assume. But the worst part of all was a photo of our history teacher, printed out and taped to a cardboard box, which he used for target practice, with the caption, "Getting ready for school on Monday." The posts were pretty chilling. For years, people had joked that Blake would do something like that one day. But no...
He said, "Getting ready for school on Monday." Hey, Mom! Dad! I'm not going to school on Monday. Matter of fact, I already wasn't going to go to school on Monday, but I'm just taking a whole week off. Why? Let's just say, just cause. That's it. I don't want to elaborate. I'm taking a week off. You can go around me. I'm not, I don't care what I'm not.
He ever thought he actually had the guts. Several people reported the post to the school, but what they should have done was report it to the police. Nobody, including myself, took it seriously enough. If I had, there was no chance I would have gone to school until he was taken care of. At school the following Monday, from what I heard afterwards, Blake came to school late, during 5th period, when we had a...
Are these real screenshots? I'm doing it something hour. What? I'm doing it. What? Okay. Wait, you are going to shoot. Come here for
American history class. He wasn't able to get into class like normally. He was confronted by the school resource officer and a couple of admins who demanded to search his backpack. That's when he drew the pistol and shot the resource officer and ran off.
Jesus.
I heard the shot from the other side of the school. Everything went silent. Moments later, the lockdown order went out. We all knew it was Blake. I looked at my teacher, who was white as a sheet. All I could see were the bullet holes in the picture of his face from Blake's post in my head. After a few seconds, he regained his composure and went through the procedure of locking the door and turning out the lights, then ordering all of us to hide out of sight. Not a moment too soon either. We all knew Blake was heading for him, and all of us by proximity. I barely had time to think to myself about how those dumb lockdown drills weren't so dumb anymore. Blake made it to the classroom door in under a minute.
Jesus.
He started banging on the door and screaming.
And that's, you know, it's one thing to have a complete random person, you know, cluck up the school, right? Guns blazing. But when somebody knows the school, the ins and outs, and like the hiding shit and all that, if somebody really knows the school like a student or a teacher, that's scary. That's nah. At least I think you would be better off with like having a stranger, a random person that doesn't know nothing about the school and just randomly targeting a school than somebody that knows the school.
I know you're in there. I'm not an idiot. People started crying into their shirts to keep quiet. Others took out their phones and started live streaming or texting their loved ones, assuming they wouldn't survive. Even I started to think that way. I couldn't think of anything to do. I didn't even have the presence of mind to think of what I might do to fight or protect myself if he were to get inside. My mind was too frayed, and it all felt so unreal. The only thing running through my head was the fact that I was about to die while sitting on the tile floor of my high school, cowering in the darkness in a huddle of students that was about to become a pile of bodies. Suddenly, a shot rang out. The crying became screaming, and everyone started to panic. In the moment, I made a split-second decision and ran over to the window, opting to jump from the second story, instead of just sitting there and waiting for Blake to come in and shoot me.
Me too.
A bunch of kids followed me, but then I fumbled around. Somebody else shoved me out of the way because I was taking too long and sent me to the floor. That's when I looked back through the door and noticed something. Blake was holding his face with both of his hands, and the blood was seeping out between his fingers. The door handle on the inside was lopsided, like he had been trying to break in. I sat there, staring, just trying to make sense of it. In the chaos, the teacher was yelling at us to get away from the windows and get back to hiding. He started calling my name because I wasn't moving, and that's when I blankly said the words. I think Blake shot himself. I said it pretty quietly for how loud the classroom was, and I said it like a husk. But enough people heard me to stop what they were doing and go silent. A friend of mine ran to the door and looked out the window right as Blake was running away. I finally got up and stood there next to him. Blood was splattered across the floor, and in the newfound quietness, I could hear Blake's cries of pain echoing through the hallway. Stupidly, and against every bit of sense I had, I tried to open the door, but it was broken. Not just locked, as all doors are supposed to open from the inside. It was broken. We were trapped inside the classroom, but at least Blake was gone. Hours later, we were finally freed and slowly learned what had happened. Blake
You wasn't really stuck. You was about to yeet yourself out the windows. I mean, you could have done that. You know what I mean? I can only imagine, like, how it must feel, God forbid, to be in a situation. But then also, when the person has the gun, goes inside the classroom.
The door by shutting the door handle, but he ended up mangling the lock completely shut and causing an explosion of metal shrapnel, which flew up right into his face. A piece of twisted metal got lodged in his eye, blinding him, and that was the end of his rampage. A lucky break for all of us, and it goes to disprove the myth that you can open a lock just by shooting it. Blake surrendered before leaving the school and was tried as an adult. He'll be in prison for the next 20 years at least. The resource officer he shot also got lucky and recovered without serious lasting effects to his health.
Jesus Christ.
My high school is near an area with a lot of gang violence, so lockdowns were a rather common occurrence. However, the one event that sticks out in my mind when I think back didn't actually have anything to do with that.
So that being said, you should have metal detectors, right? I know some schools got them. You should have security on deck, right? So how the hell did this shit happen?
The only time I actually felt scared wasn't because of a fugitive or a shooting. It was because of a student who everyone already knew was dangerous. His name was Jason.
Jesus.
He was one of those kids that was crazy smart, but had a lot of problems with authority, focusing, socializing, and so on. I'm sure everyone knows at least one kid like that from school. He got suspended for bringing a knife to school once, and then expelled the same year for trying to strangle a teacher with a shoelace. He came back the next year, though, after going to an intervention school for several months.
What?
Unfortunately, it seems like he came back worse than when he left. I got the pleasure of being stuck in the front office with him once, when we both got in trouble for different things at around the same time, and ended up sitting in there together. The assistant principal was supposed to give both of us an individual talking to, but it must have been a crazy day because we had to wait for her to get through talking to someone else first. In the span of a few minutes, Jason talked my ear off about the kids he met in the intervention school, like pyromaniacs and drug dealers and even gang members. They were definitely a bad influence on him, but honestly, I think he should have stayed there. He seemed like he belonged. He talked very highly of his experience, and he said he made friends there, which surprised me. I was actually kind of entertained by the stories.
Yeah, that's not regular friends. You're probably mistaken when he said friends to be regular friends, like regular people. No, they're cluck-ass people. Cluck-ass friends that do cluck-up-ass shit. That's what he meant to say, instead of saying friends.
What he got up to with those kids. But then he dropped a piece of information that I knew was bad news. Jason told me that someone at the intervention school had helped him learn how to make a bomb.
Jesus Christ!
Right before I could ask him if he was serious, the assistant principal came out of her office and called Jason in. That was the last time, and really the only time that I ever talked to him. It was really weird, because despite all of the stuff I heard about him, he was actually in a great mood and seemed very happy, even though he was in trouble again. I thought it was possible that he might get better, but I realize now the only thing that made him happy was remembering the violent criminals he hung out with and thinking about ways to hurt people.
On me, I don't know if it matters, but if I was you, that whole interaction of just me and him in the room, just talking, I would have did my best to try to be on his good side. Fake it till you make it. I'd have been like, I'd have been friendly as shit. And he was like, if he ever said, you know, I'm going to come back up to the school and cluck up this whole shit. But I want to let you know that because you seem cool. You know what I mean? And you seem like really my only not cluck good friend. And I'm going to keep you around. So I was telling you that. So, you know, you don't get caught up in the shits that I have planned for tomorrow here. You know? Because if you would have randomly said, you know what, you seem like a pretty cool dude. Maybe you shouldn't be here for the next, well, tomorrow and then like the following days. What you mean? Igga, just take my word for it. Don't come up here tomorrow or the rest of the week, please.
The third week of school, I'm sure he was dying to get back to that other school. That's the only reason I can think of for what he did, because otherwise it feels completely unprovoked, unless he really just got a pleasure from doing it. During second period one day, soon after the day I talked to him, he called it a bomb threat. He was apprehended quickly, but he refused to give up the location of the bomb, so the whole school was evacuated. I vividly remember the feeling of my stomach doing a flip when I saw Jason's clear backpack sitting against the wall of the hallway we were walking through. The inside was stuffed with a garbage bag, so I knew it had to be the bomb. I told one of the administrators, who radioed it in. I felt lucky then that it didn't go off when all those kids were filing out the building, packed in like sardines. I was shaking as I was walking out to the football field, but I was able to get a seat at the bleachers instead of having to stand. We were out there in lockdown mode for hours, baking in the hot sun and just waiting to go back inside. But the bomb squad had to be called in to take care of the bag, and the whole school had to be swept for other bombs afterwards. I went from being scared to annoyed to bored, and then finally I was restless. I started horsing around with the people sitting next to me, pretending I was getting a heat stroke and needed to lay down. Nobody was buying any of my BS or making any room for me, so as a joke, I laid down across their feet. It was all pretty funny, and they were kicking me and laughing, but while I was down there, I saw something that petrified me. Something was taped to the bottom of the seat right in front of my face. I pushed the kid's legs apart to get a better look, and of course, he thought I was being weird until he saw the look on my face. He was sitting right on top of a bomb.
Oh, shit!
It was a box wrapped in duct tape with a note that said, "This is the real one, I swear." I flipped out and jumped from the bleachers, twisting my ankle and causing a massive panic as everyone caught wind of the danger and fled all at once. With no...
Nope! I would have saw that shit, saw the note, and immediately ran. Hard. Man, I would have ran so damn fast. I would have said, I would have just got up nonchalantly. It was like, and I would have just left, walking, running, jogging, running, all that. Meanwhile, everybody else is at the... That's crazy.
Safe to run, and 1,000 kids running out of control. The whole situation was almost disastrous. A couple freshmen got trampled and ended up with broken bones.
Jesus.
Kids hopped the fences and ran out into the road, swarmed into nearby shops, and a lot of kids took the opportunity to just run all the way home. By the time the panic stopped, the school was basically deserted. I'm sure if Jason ever found out, he would die of laughter. What really makes it embarrassing, though, is the fact that it was all fake. None of the bombs were real. The thing is, Jason was totally smart enough to make real bombs and actually kill people. And the only reason he didn't was because his goal wasn't to go to prison for a bunch of years, but to go to juvie or another intervention school. All that fear and panic and wasted time was just part of a sick joke Jason was playing. What makes me shudder is knowing that if he had decided to go through with it, a lot of people would have died, and I would have very likely been one of them. Nobody was prepared for the threat. He pointed out a gigantic weakness in the school's response. His placements would have been extremely deadly if they weren't just fake bombs. I don't know where Jason is now, but I hope he stays far away from me for the rest of my life.
I'm saying, hold on. But it is kind of like worrisome that he does 100% know how to make bombs. That's really disturbing. I feel like, making a bomb threat and then having something that looks like a bomb, having notes, having things, signs, book bags, stuff like that kind of look like it. and it's like it looks realistic. I man, I don't know, man. It's just like I would still want him to go to jail and do some like serious years because you just don't do that, you know. Regardless if the bombs were fake or not, you don't. It's just certain things that you just don't do, and the fact that you had notes, you had things that looked like it, like looked like bombs. You had signs and shit. Like I would personally, I would have locked you up for some years. That's crazy. Right.
I live in Oklahoma, right in the middle of Tornado Alley.
Oh my god.
Extreme weather drills have been a frequent part of school life for decades, long before kids had to deal with all the other emergency drills. I went to middle school back in the 90s, and I have clear memories of huddling on the floor in the interior hallways of my school, with the lights off and my butt basically sticking up in the air, at least once a month for years. As a girl, I always felt uncomfortable, like I was exposing myself to all the teachers that were walking down the hall. But no matter what I said, I would be forced to follow instructions. I came to dread the extreme weather lockdowns more than the idea of a deadly tornado itself. A tornado might hit nearby once in a blue moon, but I felt like I had no choice but to moon all the weirdest teachers at school every month. Even worse, the lockdowns actually happened more often than that, because real extreme weather situations are very common during certain times of the year. One day in May of my 7th grade year, such a situation occurred. At the time, my classroom was one of the temporary buildings they put up around the school to alleviate overcrowding. Everyone called them portables, but they weren't portable. They were just flimsy buildings. The procedure for anyone who found themselves in a portable at the time of a weather emergency was to immediately evacuate and take shelter in the main building of the school, leaving everything behind, including backpacks. Everybody got on the ground and covered their heads with their hands and sat in the most uncomfortable, awkward, and questionable position for much longer than we usually did in the drills. The teachers told us there was an extreme cyclonic thunderstorm with a high probability to produce tornadoes, heading straight for us, and that we wouldn't be allowed to get up and go back to class until it passed by. All of that was incomprehensible.
You would think that this school, that's prone to have like really, really bad weather conditions and occasionally have like tornadoes come by, and you would think that they would have a safe room that can fit all kids and staff comfortably. But they don't. Instead, they go out in hallways and get on the floor and cover their heads and neck instead of just going to a safe. I don't know how much a safe room would cost, but I feel like the city could afford that. It's not, maybe not for every school, but at least the ones that that has really, really bad weather conditions and have tornado watches and shit like that. At least have a safe room. Jesus Christ.
Sensible jargon to me at the time, but they are words I have since learned to take seriously. Most of the time, those lockdowns felt ridiculous and overdone. But that day, as the howling winds grew louder and the haunting wail of the tornado sirens droned on, and the chit-chat stopped, and a real sense of dread clouded over us. Initially, there was some morbid anticipation mixed in with it. I was a little excited to experience a real storm without having to be concerned about my home getting destroyed. I didn't care if the school got wrecked as long as I didn't get hurt, but it seemed unlikely that it would be like that. There was a part of me that actually hoped there would be a tornado. It would make showing my rear end to the weird chorus teacher worth it. I hoped it...
I know that there's I don't know what you call them, but the people that chase tornadoes or tornado chasers, I don't know what you call them. But every time I see that, I just think like, bro, you're just asking for it. Can you out? I don't know how fast a tornado can move, like the fastest, but like, can you outdrive a tornado? You damn sure can't outrun one, but like, cause like, look at that shit. Look at that. That shit looks crazy. Jesus Christ.
Didn't last long, however. It was already dark inside because the lights were off. But at the start, there was still natural light coming in from outside. Over the course of mere minutes, the storm began to block out the sun, until it felt like an unnatural night had descended upon the world. The winds continued to get stronger, shaking the doors like the storm itself was trying to beat its way in. Then the hail came, smacking against the door like a volley of meteors. Before long, the once quiet, hushed hallway was afflicted with a cacophony of noise. Fear gripped everyone. It was palpable. That's when the telltale sound whispered into our ears. Quiet at first. The low, grumbling, growing roar of rushing winds like a passing freight train, steadily intensifying as we all knew the monster was drawing near. It was undeniable by then, even if we couldn't see it, that a tornado was on the ground and not far away. And with every passing second, it seemed more and more certain that it would hit us directly. A lot of kids started to cry. The teachers yelled at us to stay calm, but they couldn't conceal the fear in their voices. When the walls started to shake, they finally took cover too. For a few minutes, we were all equalized in this compromising position that was supposed to keep us safe. And now nobody had to be worried about anyone peeping at their crack. We all had greater concerns. The air itself vibrated at the frequency of a tornado. I could feel it in my chest. Outside, I heard carnage and destruction, debris slamming into the doors just to fly off into the distance in the next instant. It was like the world was getting shoved into a wood chipper. The most terrifying moment was when the windows couldn't take the stress anymore and shattered.
Oh my God.
A torrent of air rushed into the hall. The storm had finally found its way inside, and there's no more escaping it. It felt inevitable that the whole school was about to be ripped off its foundation, and all of us flung into the sky along with it. I clenched my teeth, and I prayed. I'm sure we all prayed. Somehow, by God's grace, it worked. Just when we thought it was about to stomp on our heads, it began to grow quieter. At last, we could all breathe a sigh of relief. Over the next few minutes, all the growing signs of danger that preceded the tornado reversed and undid themselves, until the sun shined once again, and the air was still. After waiting several more minutes to be safe, lockdown was finally lifted, and we could stand up. My legs and back were sore, but I was unscathed.
See?
The school was intact, and I could go...
That's a picture of a nut, regardless of the fact if that's the same school or not that we just saw. It's actually crazy how strong Mother Nature really is.
Back to class and get my stuff. Except that wasn't entirely true. The main building was damaged, but still standing, I guess. But as I walked outside to the field of portables, I witnessed the true devastation that had just unfolded. The portables were just gone. Besides a bit of rubble and some pipes sticking out the ground, there wasn't a single trace left of them. Not even cinder blocks remained. Everything I had in my bag was erased. My scrapbook, my notebooks, my diary, all of it taken far away with no hope of having it returned. Knowing that if I had stayed in my classroom during the tornado, that I would surely have been utterly destroyed along with it, put a feeling in my chest I'll never forget. It's hard to describe realizing you've come so close to death at such a young age. Ever since then, I've never taken the threat of severe weather lightly. It is a part of my life in Tornado Alley, but I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and it's where I will stay.
That's it? Okay. Jesus. That was, sorry, you said that was Oklahoma. Hey man, for real? Not all schools, but just the schools that are more likely to hit with tornadoes, hurricanes, big ass waves, the schools that are more likely to be hit by some strong ass, horrible ass weather that can cluck up any type of building. They should have, a safe zone. Or I don't know what it's called. Yeah, I must just say a safe zone. Or just like a building or something big enough that kind of like goes underneath the ground, or that's really more stable than the actual school itself, that can withhold, basically whatever you throw at it. And also that can hold all of the kids and staff and or parents that might be on site comfortably. They didn't have that when I was in school. Any of the schools that I went to. I don't know if they have it now, but I think they should. Everybody shows signs of of any emotion. Happy, angry, sad, depressed, fed the hell up, tired, or ready just to do some cluck shit. People will show signs all the time, but it's your job to, to see it, see those signs, understand and recognize those signs, and to either let somebody know and get the hell out of there, or get the hell out of there. Don't just stay around. Because I'll be damned if I get trapped inside of a lockdown. Jesus. God forbid. But keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy. My family.